Finally back with another Rud Rod episode. That's right, the old 39 hot rod, rat rod, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it a Rud Rod because, well, it's not really a rat rod in the sense of, it will be completely finished and painted one day. But I don't know that it'll be a hot rod either because, well, she's going to probably be a little trashy, and that's all right. So what are we doing on this episode? Well, I'm going to do the cab mounts. I've got the new ones there. Let me grab these old ones just to give you an idea of what was originally. I'll get the bigger one. Yeah, buddy. Essentially, it was just the 2x4 frame modified, tacked onto the side, a little hole on there. And that was just going to be some metal on metal action, right? So you just kind of bolt the cab down, which probably would have been fine. Not comfortable, potentially noisy, but I mean, I guess if it was tight, maybe not noisy. However, this is where we kind of move away from the rat rod sense. And I've got body mount bushings. These are just universal. So as you can tell, they're wider than the old frame, so I had to design new ones. But I also went, if you remember, I went wider here. So that was also going to change, how far out they came. So no matter what, modifications needed done. So I went from that to this. So considerably beefier. I believe this is 3/16 thick, but it could be 1/8. I think it's 3/16. I'm pretty sure that's what I went with. A little bit thicker, and this is 1/8, of course, because it's a 2x4 framing. And then I got McMaster carb bolts, zinc plated. They're pretty, with the flange, so I don't have to use washers on top, and then a flanged nylock nut for the bottom. However, I've got just regular old nuts for, well, apparently I can't open the damn things one-handed. We'll get it. Maybe. There we go. And bam. Regular nut so that I'm not destroying the nylock as I'm taking everything on and off. So the goal by the end of this episode is to have this bad boy hard mounted to the cab, all welded up. The cab mounts welded up, the body mount bushings in place, her bolted down. Ideally, I'd have that done today, but we'll see. It's a lot of work. And I say a lot of work because, well, I'm by myself, and I will be pulling the cab off, putting it back on, pulling it back off, and then hopefully putting it back on for the final time. Now, why am I taking it off right now? And that is because I don't currently have any center lines or any good markings for frame joints or anything like that. Like, I don't have any good measurements to make sure I'm symmetrical on both sides. And I should have did that before putting this cab on, but I really didn't have a good idea of how I was going to do that, and I do now. So I'm basically going to measure 2 inches, which this kind of has one there, the seam and the material. If that works, it works, but I need to go all the way. So I'll mark it 3 spots, throw a level on it, draw a line, do that for this whole center section, do it for the back. And I won't worry about doing it for this or for that right now because I'll have easy access. But I will do it here and then on the other outside. I don't think I need it on the inside. Could be wrong later on down the road, but for right now, I'm not that worried about it. And then, once those markings are on, I'll put this cab back on, which I'm currently sitting on some 3D printed spacers, so I have the cab height off of the frame as far as I want it, because I'm not going to do it level, because I don't think I wanted the cab sitting that high. So right now, you can see them right here. It's set that this is a 1/2 inch above the frame, because I didn't want a lot of frame being shown from the side. Whereas, well, maybe that's not that bad. Am I looking at this wrong? Yeah. This would be what would be in the center there, which is a lot, right? clearly more than a half an inch. So, I could measure this and just go off of that and put them in place, but I'm not going to quite do that yet because I'm still a little indecisive, but I want to square it up front to back. Now, the other thing I've figured out is the center line of this axle is going to be 24 inches from the back of the cab. Right now, to get my lower 4-link bar as long as I can with the way she sits, I need to move the cab back a little more than I originally planned. But I also think that my center bar doesn't match my design in SolidWorks, which is another reason of why I want to do the marking so that I can measure point to point and then I can update my solid model to match that. I haven't figured out, so the reason you don't see the front axle here, she's still over there, is I'm trying to shorten up the wheelbase as much as possible. So originally my dad had it planned for 115 inches, which is fine for a truck, right? But I don't want the front way out there, and I didn't want the back as far out either. And I'm trying to hit closer to 105. Yeah, that's my goal, 105. So I know where this is going to go. And, sure, I could measure 105 and square it up here, but there's stuff I need to make sure clears. For one, I need a final location for the engine. So that'll kind of base, how much can I actually put under it, because, you'll have your steering rods and all that stuff. But later episodes, probably 3 or 4 episodes from now, I'll be working on that, because next episode is going to be working on that. Back to what we're doing now. I'm going to pull this damn thing off. We're going to mark it. And then I might come back and talk to you then. And then I'll throw it back on. I'll put the 2 under on this side. I will just tack them in place, pull the damn cab off, make sure everything is level and squared up the way I want it to be, and then finish welding this side, put the other side on with the same measurements as this side so they're symmetrical, then throw the cab back on. And hope that I didn't screw up the side-to-side measurements, but I could probably measure that before throwing the cab on there. So probably tack all 4 of them up, make measurements, verify, then finish weld them so that I don't find myself cutting up welds and pulling the cab back off. All right, that was a decent opener. It's been a while. For me, I haven't touched this truck in a few months, so it's time to get back to it. got my markings on there. I don't know. Probably not perfect, of course, but a lot better than what I had before, which was nothing. And I don't think I'm that far off on my CAD model, actually. So from basically where the lines cross, I point, and I got 54 3/4, and I think I was shooting for 54.5. I'll have to double check that. Haven't gone through and actually dug into that on the CAD model in a while, so I want to say I was shooting for 54.5. I could be wrong, but I'll check it and I'll update it, so at least now I know. And I did get both sides done. Now, getting the cab off was a pain. Getting it back on is also going to be a pain. Another thing I did was I went through and prepped these, something I hadn't done yet. So beveled edges for a little more weldability, a little more material to merge, and then I just kind of broke the sharp edges. Not exactly perfect, but that's something I could always do later too if I'm not overly happy with it. The main thing was the beveled edges, and then also I flattened out the kind of where it warps when you bend the material, since there was no relief cut in there. So those are good and ready to go on. Next step is going to be me struggle busting getting that cab on. Now I'm kind of torn at the moment. I've got my 1/2 inch spacers, which are kind of a pain in the ass. I'm not going to lie, kind of a pain. Or I've got two 24-inch runs of 1x1. So I could set those on the frame rails and set the cab down on that. The thing I think I run into is I don't think the front actually crosses over there. I think the 1/2 inch on the front was kind of like teetering. I can't remember. We'll see. The other thing too was, I didn't want too much of the frame showing, but it's so low, I don't know that you're going to see the side of the frame anyways. Plus, the frame's going to be freaking black. I don't know what the cab's going to be. I've got ideas. Can't say them out loud because my ideas change too often. I don't want to, hype up something that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, that's going to be my next step, is struggle bus and getting this on top of there. Once she's on there, I'll put her in the position I want it, hopefully, and then I will throw in the one side and I'll tack those in. Probably just literally do one tack to just hold it in place, because I'm probably going to have to finagle it to get them flush and level and all that fun stuff. But I'll do the one side, and that'll give me measurements, and then I will just mirror it on the other side. So do this side, pull the damn cab off again, which is going to be even more of a pain with those on there. Measure them, flush them, tack this side better, put that side, measure it, flush them, tack it, maybe full weld it, because I don't know that I want to put this back on and off and on again, because it is a pain. This thing is not light. It's lighter with the doors off, but it's still, it's steel. So yeah, I should probably get to work though. I don't know how much I've said in this. Get to work. Well, sometimes you do dumb things. Well, that was pretty dumb. Thankfully, I caught it before, I died driving this thing down the road. Been a while since I welded, and well, that was just dumb. 2 mistakes. The main and dumbest of the mistakes was not cleaning this, right? I've remembered cleaning the rest of them. These I did not clean. And even then, these still need cleaned every time I go to weld to them. And I'm saying that out loud to remind myself of how dumb this was. But, you live and you learn. And I'm not going to hide my mistakes, right? It would have been easy to just, not show that part of the video and act like I did this correctly the first time. But that's not what this channel's for, right? I want to show you that you can still do this. You're going to make mistakes. You're learning, right? If everyone was perfect at what they did the first time, then no one would really be that special. It takes hard work, dedication, and doing dumb things. Now, second mistake is I don't think I have this high enough heat-wise, right? So when I was doing the frame stuff, I've got it set at an 1/8, whereas these are 3/16. So clean the material, both sides. I got my measurements, so I know where to put them again. So I'll go through, do that, tack it, and this time on the first one, I'll see if it pops off. If it pops off again, I'm calling it a night and coming back tomorrow with a fresh mind. So let's try this again. I've only got to take the cab off and put it back on one more time for this video. Probably 1,000 more times before this build is done. But my measurements worked out for me, and they all fit. So, heck yes. Just happy to see that. You're always a little nervous, but, measure 5 million times and hopefully only cut and weld 3 or 4. We got it. I'm happy with it. I'm excited. It's, a big step getting this cab locked into place and gets me closer to where I started, right? Because if you remember the first build, this truck already had a chassis that was much further along than this, right? Front rear suspension was all set up, cab mounts were set up. The only problem was engine mounts were in the incorrect spot, and the trans mount, technically it was in the wrong spot, but maybe the right spot if I would have just moved the engine mounts. I could have easily just moved the engine mounts and went along with my day. And then I was like, you know what? Why not slam it? You know what? Why not widen the frame and, let's just change everything. But try to keep the same overall concept, maybe? I don't know. All right, well, that was really all I had to share. Now my next step is pulling the cab off, doing the finish welds, grinding, and honestly, I might take the time to and clean up all this crap that comes on the tubing when you get it. I don't know if I'll get all of this, but I should definitely get the areas that the cab's covering. So that shouldn't be too bad. I'm not overly excited, but it needs done. So with that, let's get to it. Figured I'd pop in and show you my welds before they're gone forever. Are they perfect? Hell no. But for Mig, I'm pretty happy with them. They get a little poopy on the sides. Now I'm gonna grind them out. I did weld on the inside. The fronts I did the sides, and here I did all the way through. So it's welded inside and outside. Should be strong enough. I'm happy with the penetration, if you know what I mean. Yeah, now to grinding and cleaning and throwing the cab on, and I'll try not to talk to you guys again until we're done with the video. See how that goes. Well, this isn't what I planned on doing tonight. I was gonna come home and eat dinner. Technically, I'm supposed to go to bed in like a half hour. But sometimes you get a wild hair and you're like, you know what? I don't need food or sleep. I need to get this done. And that's what I did. She is finally mounted, and I think for the first time ever, this cab is mounted to the frame. Now, of course, for my frame, this is 100% the first time it's ever been mounted. But I don't think it was ever actually fully bolted down to my dad's frame even. And granted, yes, most of my dad's frame is this frame and yada yada. Semantics. Don't need to worry about it. However, she's in there and I like it. Oh, I like it. Look at that. Probably useless, right? You see the little gapper there? She is about 0.7 inches. Whatever you want to say that in the good old metric system. It's a certain amount of millimeters. I don't know right off the top of my head. Don't need to worry about that at the moment. But just for reference, these are 3.5 inch grade 8 yellow zinc plated bolts. And then they have just the energy suspension universal body mounts. I believe what they are. I'm going to use these same ones for the engine mount when I go to make those. And then on the bottom, it's got the grade, I think that's also grade 8 yellow zinc plated nylock nut, right? Because last thing I need to do is have this whole thing come off when I'm driving down the road, right? And that's why I went through and did the extra care on really welding these brackets on. And that's why I welded both sides, knowing that I would ground the outside and just wanting that extra penetration and safety, right? This is very important, as is, when I go to add the 4-link stuff to the back, that's all going to be very important that I get the welds good. And that'll be why I'm bracing many of these joints too. I'm new to this. There's a good chance that what I did was perfectly fine, but I don't have the confidence to trust what I've done right off that. So, I'll go in and do a little extra safety. And eventually, when I'm TIG welding, I'll probably feel a little better, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. It's all going to take time, right? First real project outside of, that bad boy, which I need to get back to her too. But here we are. She's mounted. Now the next video is going to be, a video. I'm going to take the rear axle and I'm going to clean her up. I'm going to get the brake lines off. I'm going to get all of these mounts off because I will not be using any of those. I will do new brake lines. Currently planning on changing these out for discs. They don't need to be very big. This car is not going to weigh very much. Sorry, this truck is not going to weigh very much. But, drums would be fine. But I like discs. So we're going to do discs and maybe some little drilled and slotted. I don't know. It's so hard for me not to overkill everything I do, which is why it takes so long because, well, overkill takes money. And this is a money sink. But once that's all cleaned up, if I finally have the design dialed in, I'll order everything and I'll start mounting this. If not, I'm probably going to pop the trans off of this and try and figure out roughly where I want this. Right? That's going to be the thing, is where do I need this? Because once I know where the engine goes, then I can decide where that goes. But in order to do that, I'm also switching out. So, man, apparently I'm going to ramble on this video, but I want to make sure you guys have as much details, because that's the one thing I look for on YouTube and I struggle to find is the details of these builds so that I can learn, right? I can watch and see all the cool shit people are doing, and that's still awesome. But I want the details. I want to know what you're doing, why you did it this way. And hell, I might not even have a good reason, but at least I'll give you a reason and you can trust it from there, right? So what my dad had, which is pretty standard, is a Vega steering box. I am getting rid of that to use like a half rack, kind of like a rack and pinion, but it'll mount where this mounts, and then it'll just attach to that. So it'll, I don't want to say drastically, but potentially drastically. That sounds stupid. It'll improve the steering over the Vega box. And it won't be as bulky. It'll be just like a rack, but, in a different mounting location and not both sides. It just goes to that mounting point over there. So to know where this axle sits, because of how short I want the wheelbase, I need to know where the engine sits so I can find out how close to the engine I can get that. Because there's a good chance that that half rack is going to be underneath the accessories on the engine. And I also need to decide on intake. Oh man, there is so much that goes into a custom project, but I love it. I love it. I'd love it more if I could actually stick to a decision, but that's why you just got to start pulling the trigger, right? I cut this whole frame up and started doing it because, well, it forces my hand. I forced my hand every time I buy something. I'm a step closer. So if that's what you're struggling with, right, is you got too many ideas, start buying things. If there's stuff you feel pretty confident on, buy it, start from there, go, right? That forces your hand on that decision, and then it's just boom. Keep working your way through. Eventually you'll finish it. Or, your ADHD will kick in, and you'll switch projects to come back to it. And I also am hopefully buying another car Friday, which is just going to sit until I get to it, but it was a good deal. My saying is just going to permanently be take a ride with me in my ADHD. Now, if you like this, don't forget to sub, help me grow this channel. Like, comment, ask questions, talk crap. You do you, boo. And I'll see you on the next one.